In the wonderful world of indie games, there's endless possibilities on what you want to make without some multi-billion-dollar corporation to diddle you in your works. No need for microtransactions, tight deadlines, frivolous DRM, or recently pushing out a dying blockchain fad. Sometimes inflated budgets. They're quite fun too, and likely half your game library is loaded with them. That's not saying indie games are like that back in the old days. Back then, there was no Game Jolt, itch.io, Congregate, or even Steam to push out your games. Not even Kickstarter, Patreon, or Indiegogo to fund your projects. In the 90s, it's much easier to push out a PC game on the market comparing to the consoles. The latter, you need the hard-to-acquire dev kits, a publisher who is interested, and hopefully the game's development would turn out okay. And in one such case, that game is Shantae. WayForward's little franchise about a cute girl whipping enemies with her magic hair and transforming into different creatures is nothing short than a cult classic. On today's episode, we take a look at some of her history and what's taken so long to push out a sequel, let alone her first. So without further ado, ladies, gents, trans, and half genies, welcome to Lost Legends, Shantae, and the rejected sequels. And before we start, I have a Discord and recently opened up a subreddit called r/lostlegends. Links in the description or top comment. We begin with the couple who started it all, Matt and Aaron Boson. Their story starts in 1994 during their engagement. Aaron had an idea of a character with dancing abilities, and Matt is completely on board with the idea and started to flesh out some of his mythology. Initially, some of the character's dancing abilities involving summoning or charming animals. These ideas would merge into her iconic transformations, which are integral to the gameplay. A curious reason how Shantae got her name is simple. According to Aaron, she is named after one of the campers during their days as a camp counselor. Apart from her name, Shantae's inspiration spawns from several games such as DuckTales, Aladdin, Castlevania, and Zelda. While its art is inspired by several 80s and 90s anime like Studio Ghibli, Nadia the Secret of Blue Water, and most notably, Ranma Half. The game's development took longer than it should, believed to be started in 1997. They were experimenting on which system it's going to be on, what genre they're going to make, and find a publisher to fund the project. Eventually they found all of them. They got the Game Boy Color, which is a Metroidvania, and its publisher will be none other than Capcom. On June 2nd, 2002, Shantae was released. The game was praised for its graphical fidelity, the charming characters, gameplay, and music that could rival the SIDS of the Commodore 64. Despite the praise, the game sold poorly. First off, it's one of those rare games that never left North America, and second was its relatively small amount of copies they initially shipped. like 10,000 to 20,000 units from what I heard. Shantae became not only a hidden gem, but one of the most sought after titles for the handheld. Trying to buy a legit physical copy would send you back from hundreds if not thousands of dollars, plus shipping. Though to limited run re-release would slim down that price to over 120 Canadian. But then again, that's still a little too much for a 20-year-old Game Boy game. To WayForward, the sales don't matter very much. What matters to them, there is a market for genie-themed Metroidvanias. And soon after the first game, they started working on a sequel. And the sequel they tried to make. Shantae doesn't have one, not two, but 4 cancelled games. 3 took place between the first and its sequel. The 4th one took place before the Game Boy Color, so let's start with the latter and go our way from there. This is known as the 32-bit Shantae, but I just call this Shantae's Prelude. This was a much different game than its later releases. It was going to be on the PlayStation 1 and PC, and it's going to have some traditionally animated sprites, along with 3D worlds. Think Half Genie Hero, but it's 1998. The main Shantae fundamentals are there, like animal transformations and hair whipping, but there's also some differences. Shantae was going to wear some different outfits for certain situations, and you can transform into a freaking tiger are such examples. Shantae's art is in a different style thanks to said traditional animated sprite work. The art style from the old WayForward side had this amateur late 90s early 2000s charm that was common back then. I mean the bright basic colors, the very soft shading, and trying to replicate an anime look. These are masked by the low resolutions, but when they made the Game Boy Color title, it goes for the same style as their previous game, Extreme Sports. Besides the art, one major difference is the story. So instead of an epic genie journey of stopping a bustling busty baroness to reclaim Gabe Newell's Steam prototype, this was a different approach. This version is about 3 powerful djinns escape from a magic prison to go out and drain the world from its magic. However, Shantae is a different genie who was born without magic, and she's the only one who can save the world from its peril. That's the abridged plot. One thing to point out is that the series' main villain, Risky Boots, wasn't even mentioned at all, meaning that this story was scrapped when they moved on to another system. There are screenshots of this game, but these are too small to make it out, with the exception of this one, but that's a test room. Shantae wouldn't have a console or a PC game release until June 2014, with the release of the director's cut of Shantae Risky's Revenge. After Shantae 1, they started working on a sequel for the Game Boy Advance in mind, called Shantae 2 Risky Revolution. Also known as Shantae Advance, development started in 2003. The first one is a technical marvel I mentioned earlier. However, the second was going to push things even further. The plot of Risky Revolution isn't much. Risky Boots is back for revenge, and she ordered her Tinkerbats to cut a groove in Sequin Land so she can use a big device called a tremor engine to cause disaster for the world or something. Features of Risky Revolution would include fast travels, parallax platforming, using the tremor engine to change scenery, a 4-player battle mode, and changeable pants. Seems very promising, but due to some troubles it had to be scrapped in around 2004. I know what you're thinking, but there's a lot of footage for this entry. However, I'll save that for the next chapter. Shantae Risky Waters, also known as Shantae DS. Information about this was sparse. The game was planned to be an episodic adventure like it's a Telltale game, until they decided to make this into the full experience. The details came from the official WayForward website back from 2008, and inside the Shantae Fan Club newsletter, this is what it has to say. In 2006 to 2007 we hit pretty hard, with a massive undertaking to redo the cast of hero and enemy sprites, and about half the sequel's backgrounds were created by the legendary Hank Nieborg, who then shifted to Contra 4. As you can see, the handheld market is again flooded, which is why we intentionally never made a formal announcement. But you can see a first look here. Just be aware that this game exists as design, artwork, and tech only. Unlike the Game Boy Advance game, there is no 2-hour-long gameplay demo. So in this case, the game's development didn't go very far from the design phase. The story isn't mentioned, no footage, and all we got are a few screenshots. You may think this is cancelled. In my opinion, I don't think so. I mean, look at this artwork. Does it look familiar to you? Well, it should if you look at the gameplay footage of Risky's Revenge, because that's how it became. However, in the original DSi and Director's Cut versions, a couple things that were left out, like new plus returning enemies, and a snowy mountain level. Shame. Oh, right. There's also an alternate scene posted by WayForward themselves where Shantae confronts the Squid Baron who pirated the game, also threatening him to break his, knees. Hey, squids don't have knees, do they? There's one more with even more elusive info than the previous. Shantae TV. This plug-and-play edition is being developed alongside the Game Boy Advance game. Nothing much is known apart from the Sun Plus hardware it's running on, and making an appearance in the 2003 Toy Fair, supposedly. In the Archives Shantae site, it states that it's going to be a linear version of Risky Revolution. One difference is having more vertical screen space due to the TV screen's 4:3 aspect ratio comparing to the Game Boy Advance's 3:2. I searched for this toy convention to find the elusive hardware and no luck. Results only show a lot of toys and lots of very nice looking Diora 2s. There's not a single plug and play in sight. My answers could be 1, they didn't have it on display, 2, the Toy Fair doesn't do video games at the time, or 3, the convention isn't well documented. So here's a fun little question. Why did these Shantae titles got rejected? The 32-bit Shantae is likely a mock-up, as there's no substantial footage, let alone screenshots being too small to show. Heck, I think that game is one of the experiments of what Shantae was going to be, like a full 3D platformer and an isometric adventure. The Game Boy Advance sequel got scrapped alongside the plug-and-play edition when they're dealing with both technical issues and struggling to find a publisher. The DS game, WayForward implied that the development didn't go very far, and that too were struggling to find a publisher until they decided to do it themselves. Another question for you. How did WayForward manage to keep their doors open after all this? Answer? Have you checked their Wikipedia page? They're not really a studio full of original titles. Out of their 100 plus games under their belt, over half of their library are all licensed or based off an existing IP from other companies. So within the 8 years between Shantae and her sequel, only 5 out of 30 games they made are original. In this case, handing a licensed property with a studio who could deliver in quality has its benefits, even if their worst games are straight up average to mediocre. Unless you're Ping Pals, but that's on THQ. The builds? Yeah, about that. We don't have any playable builds of the sequels I can get my hands on, unfortunately. However, I mentioned the Game Boy Advance sequel had gameplay footage. A couple clips by IGN I showed you earlier, and WayForward's livestream on the demo after their Shantae Kickstarter successfully funded. Let's take a look. The demo starts with a title screen showing a bunch of wobbly wheels used for a planned zombie wagon until development stopped. The music for Shantae 2 wasn't even made, so in its place was Godzilla Domination. There is also plenty of things going on, like parallax scrolling, seagulls flying into the background and going back to the foreground, and Shantae's self-awareness about the game being a demo. Once you give Sky's egg, you can catch a ride on her bird, and it gives you a placeholder screen showing some story elements. The foreground-background platforming is a bit confusing, but they tried to distinguish it by making the background colors more washed out. But some enemies didn't get that treatment. In his item screen, Shantae's transformations return, and according to the developers, you'll get the crab right before the mermaid, and it is quite useful for defense and limited maneuverability underwater. Then we get this cutscene with Risky Boots, albeit off screen, and a demonstration of how the game's unique mechanics should play. This would later show you the only labyrinth in this demo, which also displays a lot of neat effects. Plus, you're gonna get the ability where you return to Monkey. Sadly, the fun ends right before the first boss fight. However, the end screen shows features that what would have planned for this game. 8 chapters, 7 towns, 6 islands, 6 labyrinths, 10 boss fights, 6 minigames, over 20 hours of gameplay, and a 4-player battle mode. Sadly, the gameplay shown is the final build if I heard from them correctly. So it sucks that they couldn't finish this, but we can fantasize on what could have been. From what we know is that WayForward still got the Game Boy Advance demo because they showed us the blooming thing years ago. As of the others, likely they have those too. The only one we don't have photo evidence is the plug-and-play Shantae game. No controller, no screenshots, just word of mouth and what tech it's running on. And guess what, kids? I decided to reach out to Matt Bozon, WayForward's head honcho. Sadly, I DM'd him on Twitter and never got a response. But if he ever did, then I'll give you an update to this. The 20th anniversary for the Game Boy Color release is around the corner, so if there's any Shantae related stuff like builds of the 32-bit game, then I'll be on it ASAP. Despite the struggles, all it takes was patience and luck. Shantae's rejected sequels won't get off the ground when no such publisher is interested. But the fans spoke loud enough to encourage that there is an audience for this. Risky's Revenge got released for the DSi as a digital download, which received critical praise from both fans and critics. And by then, the hits keep on coming with Shantae and the Pirate's Curse in 2014, the Kickstarter success story Half Genie Hero in 2016, and her 5th installment, Shantae and the 7 Sirens in 2020, with cutscenes animated by Studio Trigger. It doesn't stop there when Shantae and company make cameos in other games like Hyper Light Drifter, WarioWare DIY, Runbow, Blaster Master Zero, and even in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as both spirits and a Mii costume. It made you question why didn't the publishers accept Shantae in the first place. I could name a couple reasons, but in reality, who knows? Guess they can't take the genie heat. Anyways, tune in next time where I cover a game which is the dawn of boomer shooters, the retro throwback FPS. And this time, I have a handful of alpha builds to show ya. And if you like this video, leave a like. If you're interested, subscribe and follow the White Rabbit, and the Lost Legends subreddit. As of now, I'll see you later. Bye.